I'm Will Chase. I run the social media stuff for Burning Man, as well as running the Breakout Speaks and writing the content, managing the content.
Can you hear him?
The Burning Man website.
No,
Oh,
louder.
no? Really? Wow.
I don't worry.
Project. Hi. I'm Will Chase in the Grand Ballroom. So I manage all of Burning Man feeds and the Playa and the Burning blog, and then I run the Burning Man website and write the Breakout Speaks. So I'm here to help with your social media needs. And this is Cynthia.
Hi, I'm Cynthia. I haven't even thought about what I'm going to say. I've run my own marketing agency for a little over 6 years now. I've been working on the Burning Man Facebook page for the last few months. I noticed that there was nothing before 2009, and the event has so much rich history. So I've really spent a long time in the archives and Lady B's archives, as they're called, and visiting some old burner friends and going through their storage sheds and really filling out the history on the Facebook page. So do look through that timeline. And then I've been tweeting throughout this event as well. So I'm an advanced social media certified expert. And last spring we sent out a, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but if you have the best practices, last spring we sent out a survey on how all the regionals are using social media. So that's where this best practices comes from. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. Does everybody have one of these handouts?
So let's start off by finding out what you guys have and what you need and what you're doing right now in terms of social media. So how many of you guys are actually regional contacts? Is that most everybody, just about most? Okay. And how many of you are actively running Facebook pages for your region? That's a good number. How many of you guys are running Twitter feeds? So not as many. Okay. Any other kinds of social media, in other words, digital means of connecting people? It could be email lists and stuff like that. Okay. All right. Or like Google groups and newsletters and stuff like that. Okay. So in years past, this is my third year doing social media stuff for the GLC. In the first two, we covered like all the actually it was kind of funny. You could track the development of social media in the world by what we were doing. So I look back at my presentation from 2011, and it was like, here's what Facebook is, because no one knew at that point really what to do with it. And then the second year was, okay, you're on Facebook and you're kind of struggling, what do you do with it? And what kind of challenges are you seeing as that new medium is coming up? And then we had a very rich discussion of people bringing up their challenges and questions and stuff like that last year. And so this year we decided to sort of hone it even more, because it's kind of like, if you don't know what Facebook is yet, you're probably not paying attention at all. So what we wanted to do this time was focus a little more, like assuming that you've got some degree of social media up and running for your community, we want to help you hone your experience of that and your use of it to be as effective as possible. So there's some exercises that we're going to do in the course of this. Cynthia will talk about best practices generally for social media. Do we want to take questions as we go?
Yeah, we'll be happy to take questions as we go. We'll do a Q&A at the end too.
Yeah. So if you have questions that pop up, please ask, and we can splinter off onto those. But if you have questions that can wait till the end, let's do that. So she'll talk about best practices generally for social media, and I'll jump in now and again. And then we'll go through an exercise where we help you understand your audience, because that's really what it's about. Because it's easy to sit there and get into your head and think, okay, I've got this tool and I need to use this tool, right? Rather than thinking about what you're doing with it, which is that you are communicating with somebody, right? And how do you communicate effectively to them? So we'll go through an exercise that'll help you identify your audience and understand.
So that basically you're not sitting there in front of a blinking cursor saying, what's going on? And you're like, I don't know what to say, I don't know who I'm saying it to, and what do I tweet? And just making sure that you really have content, you know what you're going to talk about, you know who you're talking to.
And that will be unique to each one of you.
Yes.
Just a question. Is your talk from last year, or 2011, or last year's presentation, is that accessible on?
I believe it was. I know it was recorded, but I know both were recorded. The second one, last year's, would be more effective to listen to than the first one, probably.
And is that through Pathable, or is it on
Not now, but I can check to see what we've got where. And
okay.
Pathable doesn't do video, but maybe you can upload your PowerPoint presentation if you have one.
Yeah, the PowerPoint presentation alone doesn't really cover it. It's more.
Is it through the Ultranet? Is it on there?
Not sure if we have it up there, but we could probably put it up there.
Okay. All right.
I just have to dig it up and find it.
That would help.
That could be the
Thank
tricky
you.
part. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Well, that's what the Pathables is for. So let me talk about that real quick. If you guys have been on the community website that has the whole schedule and everything, if you click on this actual workshop in the Pathables, we've uploaded these documents to it, so you can look at that, and then we can have an ongoing dialogue about, maybe takeaways or questions or, helping each other out when you're using social media for your region and for your events and for core and for all of that. More people came in. Do you guys need these? Yeah? How many? 2?
I can do that if you want to start.
Okay, sure. So just to run down the agenda real quick. So I'm going to talk about the best practices that again came out of the survey that you guys answered. So that was really helpful to us in understanding what you were doing, what you were not doing, and where you were confused and needed some advice. I have put up some of the regions that follow these best practices that I want to show you guys. And then we're going to do the exercise, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So before we get started, I just want to mention that, so best practices currently are Twitter and Facebook. Those are the 2 big sites right now. A year from now, we may be looking at this page and laughing because, Twitter and Facebook may have, things change. So it's important to just sort of keep up with the trends, figure out what's going on. Things come and go so fast in social media. The first thing that I noticed when reviewing the survey that you all answered was that the Facebook and Twitter pages were all over the place. There was no way of finding anyone. If you wanted to go to a region, if you moved, if you were going to an event, you just simply couldn't find them. So we came up with a really standard nomenclature that works both on Twitter and on Facebook, which is Twitter or Facebook.com/yourlocation and the word burners. So I established global burners on Twitter. We're not doing that on Facebook at this point. But Global Burners is sort of the regional network at HQ's Twitter feed that you can follow. And then we ask you to have Reno Burners or Hawaii Burners. So that's really easy to find. If you go to Austin, you can just type in Austin Burners and you know that they're going to be there, and you don't have to type in, East Texas, hot weather, Burning Man, regional. Because it's too complicated and no one's going to find you. So we really want to make it easy for people to find you guys. So that's the point of having that specific nomenclature so that you guys can be found.
You've obviously been to Mischievous, haven't
To what?
you? East Texas hot weather.
Right. So what happens when you create your Twitter account and you follow Global Burners is that we see you, we follow you, and we keep an eye on you and we retweet some of what you're doing so that you get more visibility and get seen. And when you get more visibility, you get more followers. So you guys can read through most of this on your own. The point is really just to use it. And again, the exercise that we'll be doing in a little bit will help you figure out what you're going to say, what you're going to talk about. The resources at the bottom can really help you with content. If you have, a slow month, you have nothing to talk about, you can go to the Burning Man Facebook page, the Twitter accounts, Jack Rabbits, Global Burners, the regional announced list. All of these different things can help you if you are saying, I haven't posted anything all week, and our community is really quiet right now. Let's post about the recent blog was about the temple. Let's talk about the temple. And so you can put that out there too, and just be talking about what's going on in the greater Burning Man world rather than your region specifically.
So those resources are 2 things. One is they're an input for content that is constant. We're going to constantly be putting content out on this stuff. But it's also a good example of best practices. So if you want to see how things are being done on the Burning Man Facebook page, it's potentially for you and your region a good way to model behavior, model the types of posts and the style of posts and the frequency of posts and stuff like that, so you get a sense of what works for people. Because we do this pretty carefully. It's not ad hoc. Our social networking strategy is actually very well thought out as far as what we post, when we post, the cadence of the posts over time. So things that if there's something really nasty going on in the community, like during the 2012 ticket shitstorm, I was not posting things that were really lighthearted and funny because that wouldn't have gone over well. So it's just knowing your audience and knowing the context in which you are working and being able to work within that too. So just keep an eye on those and see, you can sort of get the sense of what's going on.
You know, that said, this year I actually posted the day after the ticket sales, which went really well this year, especially compared to the year before. I posted a burner. He had been a virgin burner, brought out 2,000 little Burning Man leather key fobs that he had handmade, posted a picture of that, and the vibe on the Facebook page went from, oh, I sat online and the technology didn't work, but I finally got my tickets, to, oh my God, I met that guy and he gifted and I want a gift, and it just like, it was this explosion of love, and it was incredible, and it totally changed the energy of what was happening in the community.
I always keep a good video in my back pocket, like a really, like a really quality video of Black Rock City or something, and I know people are gonna like do a tearjerker kind of thing. So just to be able to like pull it out and go, here, everybody.
And the community wants to be feeling that love and be thinking about gifting and not be worried about, oh my God, am I going to get a ticket? So they're really open to that.
Yep.
Do we have any questions about anything that we've talked about before we move on? We will have a big Q&A at the end. Are there immediate questions? Yeah.
We have like active Facebook pages and groups, and the
Yeah.
groups are much more popular. In fact, I don't even like the timeline format of the pages. But I get that maybe the reason people have pages is you don't have to be a Facebook member to see them.
Right, so I've done a lot of thinking about whether the regional should be on groups and pages, and it seems like both are really appropriate. Groups are, you have to join, they're not open, and so it sort of creates a less inclusive feel, whereas anybody can be on the pages. So perhaps use the groups more for planning an event, and the people that are going to show up early and volunteer and help out, and the page is more for promoting the event itself. I know there's a lot of regions that, like New York, for example, there's so much going on, and you can't really tell what is an official event and what is just sort of a Burning Man style-y event. And the pages can be a really good way to communicate, like, here's what we have going on this weekend. And just be really clear about what your community, what the actual regional is doing.
What we typically do is we create a weekly announced note on our Facebook page, and then we repost to our Facebook group, and then we send that out as an email to our Yahoo group, and also the San Diego announcements.
Right, perfect. And then you can also use those, you can use the group and the page to tell people about the email list, and the email list to tell people about the pages and the groups, and just keep cross-promoting all of it.
This is what we do with this is actually the model for the Burning Man, communications map, is we have like our static content is on the website, right? And then we have sort of dynamic content and a timeline, if you will, on the blog. So it's more temporal stuff. And then all the other resources that we have, Twitter, Facebook, even the Jackrabbit, are pointers to that content, right? So it's like it's not just repeating the same content everywhere. It's amplifying your signal of that content. So you have your bucket, and then you have a bunch of stuff pointing at that bucket. And so wherever people are looking, they're going to end up in the right place for you. So it sounds like you're doing that right.
Right. We're trying to get our website up and running. It's supposed to be any day now. But yeah, a lot of the content will go there.
Right, and you use those resources to point back to the website.
And I found, as far as groups go, everything Cynthia said is absolutely right. And I found groups to be really helpful for very specific activities, and where people need to connect around a certain idea, moving, that they're working collaboratively on in some way, shape, or form, whether it's an idea or a project or something like that, rather than the page being more of a, hey everybody, here's our world, come just sort of breeze by it, and sort of loosely be a part of it. There's more of a tight affiliation when you're dealing with a group. There's an affinity group involved.
There's a lot more collaboration and cross-posting in a group than I've ever seen on the page.
Yeah,
Right,
definitely.
right.
And that's one thing we see on the this is I'm sort of dabbling in best practices as we go here, but you will see when you post something on the page, what you'll see is a rush of people starting with one attitude, right? It's sort of the kind of, it's a big teeter-totter. If everyone starts sitting on this side of the teeter-totter, it goes like this. And so it's a really negative response that you're getting. It goes, so anybody who's going to be interested in posting something positive isn't going to do it, because they're going to feel like they're going to get hammered. They're going to feel like they're going to get, criticized, or they're not in the majority and they feel bad and they sort of back off. So the whole thing sort of slides that way. So that can be really dangerous in terms of just like having that open kind of communication. So sometimes what we do, we don't do it too actively because it's a little bit pernicious, but it actually is a good thing to do, is what's called astroturfing, which is it's sort of like it's artificial grassroots creation. So what you do is you find people who are, have the attitude that you would hope to see propagated on that page, on that post, and dude, can you go make some, make a couple posts, make a couple comments, and sort of sets the tone properly.
Because it's better coming from someone in the community rather than the official page itself, which is sort of like, Big Brother.
Yep.
Right?
And if you're doing it yourself, you're going to look like you're editing and censoring.
Right.
Rather than just letting the community do its thing. But you can't help to affect it.
And then a quick note about the private messages that are on the pages. That is, as Facebook has done within the last year, there's private messages that come through. Typically, the way I see that is that people, they just want to be heard. So you just make them feel heard, you acknowledge them, and I don't answer their questions specifically, but I tell them where they can find the answer. So again, radical self-reliance.
And I think there's a difference in this regard, between the Burning Man Facebook page and what you would do within your own regions. I think there's a different sort of communication structure involved, where from our standpoint, the way I treat our Facebook page and our sort of social media is the analogy for me is Black Rock City. So what we're doing is we're just creating the trash fence and the basics for creating a civil society, and then letting everybody else work within that and communicate with each other and self-police and self-inform and connect with each other. So if someone posts a question on the Burning Man Facebook page, you will never see me reply to it. You'll never see Burning Man reply to it. Unless it's something, we let the community do it. We let people connect with each other within there, so it's not always coming from us. And a lot of times, that's fine until there's a point where we need to, the question isn't being answered by the community. Now, when it comes back to you guys in your regions and how that would work, I think there's a different dynamic there. I mean, you can let that happen more as well, let the community work within itself. But I think there's a different relationship that you have with your audience in terms of establishing you're creating a much more tighter connection with those folks as a regional, and because you are the central bond for that community. And so I think it's more called for you to step in and answer questions.
Right. Your regions are not going to have 430,000 followers like the Burning Man page. It's a little different.
Right.
So,
You mentioned about going kind of negative, and so is there any point where you feel like a lot of the negative, especially if it's between individuals, do you ever feel like there might be a point where moderation is appropriate?
Yes, definitely. So moderation is a very good topic. The way I look at it is I am extraordinarily lenient with people's behavior on there, but we do have guidelines that are posted, and you guys are welcome to copy and paste those guidelines. They're just on the Facebook page, you can get to them. They're the same guidelines that we have for the blog, same just comment guidelines. And they're very clear as far as, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. Like, you can be critical, you can be, a total asshole if you want, as long as you're not directly insulting people. I mean, I drew the line, Andy Grace and I drew the line and said, this is the level of behavior. So you could be a jerk all you want and be, say Burning Man sucks and blah, 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 blah. That's fine. But if you start insulting people directly, then we don't feel like that's, or if you're sitting there like hammering on things and being a real jerk and just bringing down the overall tone of the conversation and just not contributing to it actually, then I'll moderate you. I mean, I'm just very, very reluctant to do that though. Luckily, in the years that we've had the Facebook page up, which has been like 3 or 4 now, something like that, I've actually had to get in direct contact with about 5 people, something like that, who are trolling us. And they just got out of hand and just wouldn't shut up and really weren't contributing anything. And I emailed them, I direct messaged them and said, hey, this is Will from Burning Mode. Can you tone it down a little bit, please? And they do. Generally, like all of them have to date. So.
And then the people that post their diet websites, I delete those too. I report them as spam.
Yeah.
That's just.
Have you ever taken any? Well, is that on the page or is that in a group? Because I notice in a group you can, if they keep spamming whatever shoe sales, then you can take them out of the group.
Take them out of the group.
Yep.
Yeah. If they're not really, absolutely.
Well, They never even really look like real people.
You can't do that.
The
with
shoe
photos.
sale happens a lot too. That's weird, that's a common
I don't
one.
know who they are. They're not real.
Yeah,
Right,
they're usually
we
bots.
should keep going.
Usually bots.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, question here.
As the other gentleman has mentioned, one of the biggest problems we have, there's an unofficial group, and it's largely been taken over by trolls.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing how much energy people have to spend on an event that apparently they loathe. And I was as I start creating a social media policy and a social media team, are there written guidelines for how to be a moderator, written guidelines on how to astroturf, so that, you know, not everyone is in a situation where they can do all of that themselves. And if there's volunteers, if you can give them a printed guideline and then have a consistent way in which things happen.
Yes, the answer is yes to a degree. Yes, we have a policy around like our social media guidelines and stuff like that, which we're absolutely happy to share with you guys, and we will. But we don't really have ones on like, here's how you moderate, and here's how here's where because a lot of it's just judgment call.
It's, yeah, trust your intuition. As far as the fake pages, the unofficial pages, basically just ignore them.
That's
And
what we
then
do.
every once in a
It's
while, I
a
would,
truth.
I would astroturf it. I would have someone come in and say, hey, just making sure you guys know that this is not the official page. You specifically as your real page don't want to do that. But if you have a friend who's part of that other community, they can post it. And just, make sure people are aware that, it's not a real page.
Yeah,
And
that's.
the answer to trolls is don't feed the trolls.
Right.
They're looking for attention. That's all they're looking for. If you need to ban them, but don't feed them on your page, because it will cycle back on itself.
And often we see when there is a troll, someone super nice person will come in and answer the original question, and that will just change the energy.
We have a few angels on the Burning Man Facebook page who are there pretty regularly, who will diffuse situations for us. We're not asking them to; they just do. It's just
Right.
like, thank you.
Right. It's just that kind of community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Yes.
I think I missed it. When you say the Burning Man Facebook page, there's only one group that I know of, it's the Burning Man.
There's a few other groups that are out there that are running unofficial pages that I've asked that don't necessarily behave in ways that are show the shining light of our community, if you will. And I've asked them to make very clear in their description of their page that they're not official.
I don't even know if I'm part of the official one or not.
You might be.
We shall see.
You should see.
Yeah, the official one is on there in the resources section. So.
Is there another?
And you can tell if you know. If you know, you know.
That's the page as opposed to the group.
There's
Yeah,
no.
we do not run a
There's
group.
no
That's
group.
what I
There's no
didn't
official
know.
group.
We do not run a group.
Right.
Wow, you see no value that's
No. Not for us.
because it's trash
For
friends for them.
regionals, yes, not for.
That's what I was saying. The difference between a page and a group is much more around
So what-
a shared affinity.
Groups also max out at 5,000 participants. So for a page that has over 400,000 likes, you just can't do a group.
That makes me more intrigued. Okay, so you have another internal system that you use for your own social media within Burning Man for your own, not just email.
I know what you mean.
What's your question? Yeah.
Because I know Miss Chibi in Dallas, we use our Facebook group. That's how we collaborate.
Right.
We have less than 1,000 people who are
Right,
members of
but
this
they
group.
have 70 people, as far as I know, employed. So you communicate specifically just with email?
Pretty much. Yeah. Like in other words, inter-department, inter-office communications are pretty much all email.
As opposed to announcement stuff. Okay.
Oh, and we have some announcements.
There's some announce lists.
But yeah.
Yeah. There's announce lists. There's email. There's Yeah.
That's I tell you, that's the stuff that really is imperative, at least for.
You mean email lists for your region, right?
Okay. So you don't need Facebook group for your internal stuff.
No.
It's all BurningMan.com emails. There's some instant messaging and of course texting.
This actually speaks to like really understanding the different tools that are out there, and each one has a very, very different purpose and a different style. Yeah.
I know.
No, this is worth considering though. Is like the way Facebook works as an interaction mechanism versus the way Twitter works are two very different things, and the way email works is a very different thing. So knowing and this sort of goes to understanding your audience and with the stuff that we're going to do, is thinking about who's in your community, who you're working with, what they're most likely to use, right? Are they going to be on Facebook? Are they going to be on Twitter? Are they complete Luddites and have no idea about any technology? That's a whole different ball of wax. But knowing whether a group works for your community or just a discussion list is just fine for the number of people you have and the way they're going to work with the leaders and stuff. So we can work a little bit more on that.
And there are people in HQ that are not on Facebook at all.
Yeah, refuse to.
So.
Larry, for instance.
Right. Stephen Rasmus.
Amen.
Okay, so, gosh, this is really small. I wish you could see this better. But this is the Reno Burners Twitter account, and they are twitter.com/@RenoBurners, which is perfect. And they started some tweeting, which is great. So this is like an ideal early stage regional Twitter page. Well done, Reno. This is the Denmark Burners. Again, similar. Twitter.com/@DenmarkBurners, and they have started tweeting. So we are following them. When they tweet, we retweet them. This is the Vancouver Facebook page, so it's going to be facebook.com/VancouverBurners. So, really easy to find. They've got a lot of likes. Looks like they retweeted something from the Burning Man page. They're following some other pages, and they've got a great header, which is really nice. Lots of interesting photos. Houston is using Facebook for their core project. I wanted you guys to see this as well. So they have a page where they're simply just talking about core. And they have on their main Facebook page, they have links to it so people know about it, people can find it. Their email announcement says, please find us on core. So their core project has a page, and it's not dated. It doesn't say core project 2013, so that they don't have to rebuild their followers year after year and go back to that same page. Similar with the Burning Man GLC, with this conference, we created a Twitter account with no year on it, so that next year we don't have to start over again and tell everybody about it. We can just keep building on those followers. This is the afterburn, so an event. When you have an event, you create a Facebook page for it. Very close to the nomenclature, facebook.com/afterburn. You can see they've got over 13,000 people following them. So it's a very well-attended page. They have a lot of content on there. And everybody who goes to the event is following them. Yeah.
So Africa Burn has its own page, and then the regional in South Africa then has their own page. Is that right? So, and
right.
Is that bigger events that you would say, oh, create your own page for the event itself? Well, it's huge, so.
Right. It's a huge event. And yeah, I mean, if it's a smaller event, if it's not an annual event, you might just keep it on the regional page. But if it's a big annual event with a lot of people attending, you can create a specific event page.
Right.
And just make sure you're telling people about it, using your email list, using your regional Facebook page, using your Twitter account, and get people to that specific event. So if there's a lot of information going about that event, you can contain it within that Facebook page.
I agree. For like the larger regional events like Apogea and Transformis and stuff like that, of that scale, I would say having their own Facebook page makes total sense.
Right.
Because then you have your audience can come directly to that for all the information that you can possibly put out,
Right.
and they won't be swimming in all the other
Yeah,
regular
that's
regional
true.
stuff if they don't need to be.
So then creating, say, obviously we have very small events in Monterey. Not like like that. It's great. So is it better to create, I was running into this because I'm not great on Facebook, so I'm here. And creating an event through a group, creating an event through a page, like I can never figure out how to do it, and I can't figure out the details, and then the help is no help. So, and inviting everybody, it won't let me invite everybody.
Don't rely on Facebook help.
Right.
And so I was going to look at your last year's talk, maybe there would be all the information about just doing the events, but it's best to do it through the Monterey Burners page when we have an event.
I would say so.
Okay.
For something of that scale, that would be my gut, yeah.
Okay.
And this is actually something that came up in last year's session, and there was a great amount of debate and discussion around it, because somebody asked pretty much that same question, like, where do I put my event? There's all these different ways I could possibly do it. What's
Right.
best?
Right.
And everybody had a different idea. And it was sort of, and it's true, because there are way too many ways right now. The market has gotten way too diffuse with event promotion.
Yeah.
So it used to be like Evite was your thing.
Right.
And who uses Evite anymore? Well, some people do. And now there's 5 other services that do the same thing. And then there's your Facebook groups and your pages. And then wait, if I create an event on Facebook in my own, under my own account, does that then share over to this? What shit? And then you're like,
Yeah, it doesn't.
and you don't.
Yeah.
So the answer is find one central place that you can contain all your information as much as possible. Ideally, in my mind, that's your website, like a web page, you know, a Tumblr or whatever, something that's simple to create your bucket where you're going to put out all the information, and then you can create those other things to just always point to it again.
So then that's like a WordPress kind of
Yeah,
web page.
or something like that. Yeah.
And something that I have noticed on Facebook too, if you're having a private event, it's not necessarily private.
Right.
People can see it. The only way to make an event really private is to create a secret group and then have your event through that secret group.
Yeah.
So
You'll still have the police watching even on a secret group, you know.
Which is a very good point.
Friends
Yeah,
of friends, like we've had events get shut down because we didn't have proper permits and everything.
Yeah.
Because, hey, we see you guys are doing a big event, you have a permit?
Yeah, they're smart. They're smart about it.
Yeah.
And we had that question come up last year as well, of people like saying, well, I have people crashing, we're doing events in private houses and stuff like that, and we have people crashing these things. How do I keep them? Like, don't put it on social media.
And no matter how good of a job that you do, we have a comm team in Dallas that handles everything. So we've got a couple of different avenues of sending information. And even if you do that, there are people that I run into in person that don't know stuff is going on because they're too inundated with all this information.
Right.
So no matter how good of a job you do, people are still going to fall through the cracks.
That's right. It's an attention economy right now. There's a lot of things on the out in the internet, in case you didn't notice, that kind of distract your attention. Your job is to find a way to raise above the noise and figure out how to get your word out there to the right people. And a lot of times that's spraying the word way too far and wide than you would like to.
So can we hold the questions to the Q&A at the end? So we're getting a little worried about our time. This is the Burning Man GLC account that I created a couple of weeks ago. The numbers have tripled since I did it, since I posted this up here a couple days ago. And there's no Wi-Fi in here, so I can't show it to you live. But you'll see that we're following like Open Art Rumor and Graph. We're using our hashtag here. And I'm getting notifications on my phone. People are retweeting us. They're using the hashtag. The hashtag is automatically showing up on the Pathables page. So what we're doing is bringing awareness to this page by following these different organizations, retweeting them. They see that we retweet. They follow us. Graph has hundreds of followers. When we retweet them, all of their followers notice us. So it's all about just being part of the community to create awareness of your Facebook page, your Twitter account, so that more and more people follow you and are aware of what you're doing. Because if you're going to spend the time to do this, you want people to know about it, right?
Yeah. So who you follow matters,
Yes.
right? With your account. It's a good way to raise awareness, amongst those people that you're following. But also, it's a good way to show affiliation. So, like, who do you want? Like the Burning Man, we actually went through an exercise recently to say, okay, who's the Burning Man account going to follow, and why? And our mission as an organization is shifting to this outside world nonprofit. And so there's all these now nonprofit affiliated groups that are sort of a like mind. Okay, we want to start following them to show the world that we are affiliated with, not dirty hippies running around the desert, but TEDx instead, and that kind of thing. So it creates those associations in people's minds. So when as Cynthia created this Twitter feed, she followed Burning Man, and I saw, okay, that Burning Man GLC is now following you, and I was like, oh, we created a GLC Twitter account. That's cool. I didn't know that. So then I followed it back, and then I started retweeting what they're putting up. So suddenly,
Everybody following the Burning Man account is now aware of the GLC account.
just by virtue of her having followed me,
Right.
or followed Burning Man.
Right.
So that's how this kind of thing works. And suddenly you're like, as soon as someone big picks up on you and retweets you, then you certainly get a whole different audience. I would also say cross-posting your, if you want to get more followers, cross-posting your Twitter feed to everywhere. Like put it to your email list, put it on your Facebook page, occasional reminders. Like I'll do that now and again on the Jackrabbit, for example. And I'll say, hey, don't forget, if you want to, if you're interested in keeping up with Burning Man information, blah, 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 follow @Burning Man. And then suddenly you see, I just sit there and watch the numbers go pop, 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 pop. And I'm happy to do that with your guys' feeds as well. So I'm more than happy to like say, hey, so-and-so region has a new Twitter feed, follow them here. And you'll get a big audience real quick.
And I think Twitter can be sort of scary and intimidating, but it's actually really fun once you get involved. You connect with people from all over the world that you would never connect with in any other forum. I mean, it's really fun. And you get used to the 140 characters.
It has its pitfalls, of course.
Oh,
You have
well,
to be careful.
yes, what doesn't?
Do you guys have like any suggestion of how many times a week should we?
So we're going to talk about that in our audience exercise, which we're going to hand out right now. That again, it depends on you. It depends on your region. You don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it either. So like we are tweeting like crazy during the conference, and then that's going to really slow down after the conference. But we want to keep it up throughout the year, so that next year when the conference comes around again, it's not like, oh yeah, we got to revive that account and make sure people are still following us and aware of us. Just sort of, you want to maintain it throughout the year. So you can certainly tweet more than you use Facebook, but you want to make sure that you are using it, I would say, at least once a week. Yeah, both. I would use both at least once a week. More if you have something big coming up, less if it's a quiet time in the community or whatever's happening.
So that's actually a good segue into the audience exercise. So I'm going to pass these out. So if you can do the pass one, take it around thing.
Save some for us.
Take it around and pass it around.
That was kind of the,
That's your brother? No, that's your brother.
Oh, so we're going to use this exercise to help you create your intention for using social media in your region, helping you use the tools more effectively. And then you're going to end up with a mission statement for how to use social media and to what ends.
So what I'd like to do with this exercise, does everyone have one in hand? So what I wanted to do with this exercise is
no, I'm just trying to
do this as sort of an open discussion with you guys. So I want you to take a look at the questions and really think about them. And I'd love to get some answers from people in real time so you guys can sort of get the sense of how this exercise works by virtue of how the different answers that people will have to these questions. So a little background on this. Thank you, Chris Breakout. You're welcome. A little background on this. I was a rhetoric major in school, and yes, that's really a major. I had to tell my parents that often. And the key thing about rhetoric that we learned in there was that it's all about your audience, right? So the art of persuasion, the art of communication is about understanding your audience first, and then figuring out the right and proper way to communicate with them the most effectively, based on what their context is, what their how they're going to hear you, what technologies they're using, whatever it is. So what I realized as we started to think about this session was that this is probably one of the most valuable things that you can do, other than understanding the nuts and bolts of how to use Facebook and how to use Twitter and whatnot. This is really what it's about. It's like who's on the other side of that communication, and how can you work effectively with them. So what we did is we developed some basic questions here that are probably fairly easy to answer for you, that will really give you a picture of who your audience is and how you're going to communicate with them. So again, the outcome of this is sort of have a mission statement, like of what I want to do with my social networking, my social media.
And one thing really important to think about when you're marketing, when you're doing social media, when you're talking to your audience, is to use terms that they understand. A lot of times we get talking to people in our own languages, and it just doesn't resonate with people at all. So you want to make sure that you're talking to them in their terms, in their words, in language that they understand. Not necessarily in the language that you know, because it just might not resonate at all with them.
Okay, so let's take a look at the first section real quick. describing your audience, the audience in your region in about 2 to 3 sentences. So every region has a very, very different personality. Hawaii is going to be very, very different than New York. Very different from the South, very different from South Africa, the rest. So, like, what turns them on? What turns them off? Think about what kind of things would just like really engage them. What kind of things would turn them away from you? And what's their personality type? What sort of, if you attributed them to a kind of person and an actual personality, what would that look like? So imagine it as if you were like talking to another person standing across from you that represents your community. What's their, what are they about? They could be schizophrenic for a lot. if it's a really big community. Geographic proximity of your audience. How are they close enough together that they can get together in physical proximity, or are they spread all across South Dakota? And the only way you're ever going to be able to get them together is via these mechanisms. How many of the people in your region are actually on social media? If it's 10%, that's a very different thing than if it's 90%. You're gonna behave in a very different way. So does anybody can anybody give me like just a quick answer for your region of what your region looks like in this regard?
My favorite typical
Where are you
person, I'm Miss Fidget. I'm representing Playa del Fuego, the Mid-Atlantic regional bird. And my favorite bird type that I meet at our event is usually someone who has a government job where they cannot tell you what they do for a living, but they're probably running around naked. And one of my favorites was he had a beautiful like tank full of eucalyptus and would spray you down with scented waters, but couldn't tell you what he did.
So you have to be careful of photographing people and putting it up on social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very, very big concern.
Sure.
Right. So a very privacy-oriented kind of group, potentially. Okay.
Don't put chip in a tutu. Right.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I think we've got about 85% that are on Facebook media, and we don't really have much of a Twitter presence yet, but we have had a Yahoo group for years that a lot of people in our community always, San Diego. And we do announcements, obviously, through
So one of the dynamics of your community is that you've got the email list of people who are used to that, and they're comfortable with it, and so that's something to consider in terms of like, do you keep them there? Do you try and move them to something else? If you start to bifurcate your audience too much, you bifurcate your message too much, it's like people start to wonder, where do I look? And then the work for you becomes exponential because you have to like cover all those areas.
And if you know anything about marketing, trick marketing, tell them something several times. You just put a little drip in a bucket, and after 7 times, they'll probably move from the Yahoo Announce group to the Facebook page. It will take, some people will go the first time, some people will take 7 times, but everyone will eventually get there. You just keep mentioning it over and over again. You don't have to broadcast it, just a little drip.
I had in Brazil, we are just starting. I have like 50 followers that pretty much like.
That's a good story. That's start somewhere. Yes.
I noticed like asking like what turns them on. Like I posted like art, like a few images from Playa art, and they like it. And like I would say the personality would be like a teenager discovering the world. It's like oh they're like still like not knowing what it is much.
Right.
And it's totally vast. Like I've been talking and like having people from dollar streams out of Brazil asking me questions, and I'm trying to connect. But the percentage is high. But I would love to talk with someone, maybe some strategy to help me develop a strategy of like doing more conscious path in this beginning, because I feel like every time you post a photo, it grows like 3 people, but I don't know, I'm not in a rush anyway, but it's just like having a strategy. Videos and where I can have access to great quality videos and like that don't have like don't need subtitles, it's like just images and sound. So I don't know, it's like.
So that actually brings up a good point that it's video, photos, and text that show up in the streams in that order. So if you post a video, it's going to show up probably 3 times more than just simple text will. You know, the eye is really drawn to light and color.
Yep.
So video and photos are really key. And often, if you just have to, just want to say a little something, throw in a photo with it. More people will notice it, click it, like it. And when people are clicking and liking, their friends are seeing that they're clicking and liking. So if you have some people in Brazil who are all friends on Facebook, but they haven't actually liked your page yet, if one of them does, all their friends will see it. So it grows virally that way.
So the idea is posting photos, right?
Posting photos. Photos work, yeah.
I personally, I try to create a nice variety, right? So if you just sit there and hit the same thing over and over again, video, 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 it becomes kind of redundant. It's still beautiful and attractive to people, but it's sort of a one-trick pony rather than having like a nice, I try to create a nice dynamism between here's a photo, here's a video, here's a blog post that's interesting, so it sort of keeps the whole thing interesting.
But is there a source of where you can access as a regional contact to get videos from you guys?
Yes.
Films in the box.
So we'll post stuff on our Facebook page. I'll always put, there's a videos, audio, and photographs, photo galleries section of the Jackrabbit Speaks that I try and put one each time. There's also Burning Man Writings section in there too that has like posts from our blog and other places, stuff that I find like news articles that are being written about.
Your Facebook page?
Not as much on the Facebook page, definitely on the Jackrabbit Speaks.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff I put on Facebook as well.
I would also say to activate your community. Tell people if they create cool videos from Burning Man or regional events, you put it on the Facebook page.
Yeah, just to no hands to great number of people that have been in Burning Man that are there. So I'm trying right now is exactly find these people. I mean, let these people know that we are there. Because for them to find each other, because it's not about me, it's because
Sure.
So it's because,
Right.
So still, I didn't reach these people yet.
Right.
So it's I have
Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
That's actually a good point in terms of understanding your audience. This is the value of the Virgil really is what percentage of your audience is sort of preaching to the choir. In other words, how many are core burners, go every year, or have been at all, versus the ones that you want to attract into your community. So you need to think about your community in that way, because that will change your strategy to a degree. Because you can sit there and talk within your immediate community, but how do you get stuff out to the real world? So you might want to find ways to bridge that gap by extending by reaching into your social network. In other words, finding people who you know are going to be interested in this kind of stuff and are into this culture and this type of lifestyle but don't know about it yet. Ping them and let them sort of amplify it out to their communities. And that's a good way to get stuff going out there, and a really rich way to do that, obviously, is video.
Right. So are you looking for the burners in your area that you haven't found yet, or are you looking for people in the community that you want to bring into your region that may then discover Burning? Two very different groups. People that have already been in your region, people that might get it.
And two very different ways of communicating with them, right? So they're the ones, you can sort of have it be like, okay, I'm talking with my core group about this thing that we know, and there's this guy who's eavesdropping on the conversation and going, hey, that sounds pretty neat. But if you want to communicate directly with that new person, it's a different way of communicating. So maybe there's something to consider as far as just keep in mind that you're going to have people who are doing that eavesdropping, so not everybody's in the in crowd. And you probably all are well aware of the feeling of, well, there's this clique and they really know what they're doing and they're really cool and I'm not cool. So how do I get in on, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So being as open and friendly as possible is, and not using the jargon that other people won't understand. Like saying the playa. No one knows what the hell the playa is, that hasn't been to the playa.
Right, especially in Brazil, that just means
Yeah.
On the playa every day.
We actually, I'm sorry, I'm back from Oahu, and I actually decided one day that there are so many people that were trying to get into the new, we make them newbies basically.
Yeah.
And that they wouldn't know a lot of these terms that we're using.
Yeah.
So I came up with my version of a terminology list.
That's great.
What's the playa, what's Leo, what's EDM, what's, all these other things.
Yeah.
And I came up with about, I'm going to say probably close to 200 terms.
Wow.
And so we put part of ours on the website,
Yeah.
on our capilina.org website, which we're 501c3. And then we also put it on our Facebook page as well. So we put like 10 things up.
So I have an idea for you. You can do term of the week. Pick a day of the week, pick a term, and post it.
We
So
actually
you know, like every Tuesday
Yeah.
term of the week. You know,
We actually
to
do
be
something
that people start
similar,
looking for.
but we haven't been real good about making it consistent.
So you can actually
Yeah.
schedule posts. You can go
Oh,
in
okay.
and when this is only available on a page. You post
Right.
things and then you can click on those little, like I think it's an image of a clock on the bottom, and it
Okay.
goes into what's called the activity log. And so you can set up a whole year's worth of posts pre-dated. Do it today, and then it will start posting for the rest of the year.
If you guys want to, I can leave my email address, and I'll be happy to just email it to you.
I would love to see
Or
it.
put it
I'd
up
love
on
to
the
see it too.
panels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everyone will see
We
it.
have a Burning Man glossary on the Burning Man website under what is Burning Man. It's a glossary. It's kind of it's
Oh, really?
it's
I didn't know that.
I would love to see what you have because I've been meaning to update the thing for a long time because there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't make sense to anybody anymore. It's stuff from like way back when Stuart was there.
I actually
There's a lot
have
of stuff
it
that
on
Stuart would be like, that's hilarious. And everyone else would go, I don't know.
I actually have it on my computer upstairs. So.
You're making it feel old. Come on.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see that for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I would add to that, like as you know, if you're doing those once a week, I think it's a brilliant idea.
Oh yeah.
Mix them in with, it's like punctuation. It's like a sentence. What's it makes a more interesting sentence? Like saying the same word over and over again, or having like a dynamism to it. So, video, photos. Here's your word of the week. Here's an interesting blog post that brings in the philosophical, dimensions of Burning Man. Sort of like so people get the full picture. And you never know with your audience. This is part of sort of understanding your audience. You don't know what someone might be triggered by in a good way that you're not aware of. So like having, pointing to burning blog posts, like Caveat Magister's blog posts are awesome. I don't know if you've seen them yet, but they're brilliant, and they're just like, they really delve into the intellectualism and philosophy and spirit of Burning Man in a really unique way. And those kinds of things are really compelling to people, well, some people. But they're really fascinating, interesting, angles to our community that are worth putting in there. So just, mix it up all the time, keep it moving for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that started, we did a couple months before the burn last year, is we started having in San Diego, like every other day, we open a new topic about Burning Man, like shelter or photography, and so many people contributed to those threads, and they kept going up and down. And it was really very helpful to the many versions that we had, and people, when we told them about it in the Yahoo groups, we had a lot of people join the Facebook.
That's a great answer to what turns on your audience, right? And that's something that we see too. And this is, again, think about this in your own region and what how to do this kind of thing. Asking questions works really well, especially with a very interactive, participatory culture like ours. You can say, what's your favorite? I had John Curley post a picture after the event in 2010, I think it was, I think it was the double rainbow. And because that's something everybody saw if you were out there. What does it mean? And I said, and we said, what's your story about, where were you at this moment, and what's your story? And everybody had a story, and suddenly it was like pop, 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 and like everybody was getting inspired. It was the thread that came out of it was just beautiful. It was like heartwarming, and you do it right after the event, so it's like fresh in people's minds and that kind of thing. But engaging people with questions and getting their ideas, like what's your best shelter tip, or what's share your best playa tips here on this thread or whatever, or you could create a wiki, a board that people can add stuff to or whatever. Those kinds of things really engender that kind of community and that kind of connection and that information sharing.
So that brings us to the next question on the sheet, which is what are your intentions with social media? So what's your ideal outcome with your region? What does it look like? What do you want? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to come to events? Do you want them to just get on the Facebook page and communicate with each other? It's going to depend whether they are, they can hop on the subway and just get there, or if they're all on 5 different islands and you may never see each other. Are they actively engaged? Are they coming to their events? Are they self-organized? Do they hold big fundraisers? Are there core building parties? And what happens in your community? So that's, it's some important things to think about as well. And then where are you going to get your content for sharing? What kind of events occur that you want to share with the community? How proactive and engaged is your community? Does the regional contact create all the events? Or is it more the community itself that's creating all the events that are happening? So is it top down or is it based on the community?
I think for you guys, really going through the intentions exercise of this is really helpful. Is really understanding, draw a picture in your own mind of your ideal regional situation, right? I mean, beyond just like, it's easy to sit there and look at that screen and be like, okay, I've got a Facebook page and it sort of ends there. You have to imagine this as the window, the doorway to your group, to your community. And what's your picture of the ideal situation for that community? They're getting together for regular weekend, beach cleanups, or there's just a vibrant discussion, and that's all I can hope for and want. So what's the ideal picture, and then sort of step back from that. And once you know who your audience is and what their temperament is and what turns them on and off, and where you want them to go, you can sit there and figure out, okay, what are the things that I want to communicate to people that are going to forward that intention, that are going to lead me towards that goal and get people working in that way. I mean, again, it's going to be unique to everybody. Yours could be just, I just want people to get along. I want people not to be jerks to each other for Friday. And if that's your goal, then that's
we know they're going to buy tickets, right?
What?
That's not the intention. We know they're going to buy tickets.
Right.
We don't need to worry about introducing people to Burning Man. It's not like this. We're not looking for more people for the Burning Man Facebook page. We're looking for a better educated crowd, so that people on that page know to show up with their water, with their shelter, that they're not just going to a rave. So that intention is going to be very different than a brand new Facebook page with maybe an event that you've never held before. How are you going to communicate that? What are you going to talk to them about? Who are they? Who are these people? How old are they? Why are they coming to the event? Have they been to Burning Man? Are they going to be able to survive if they come to your event? Do they know what they need to bring?
Also, are these the type of people who are going to be doing sort of living Burning Man culture year round? Some cases yes, some cases no. Some people it's just like I want to go to the playa and that's my experience of Burning Man and I'm sort of done. And it changed me as an individual, but I'm not going to necessarily act that out on a day-to-day basis. But maybe in your community, there are people who do want to do that and want to have organize things that are that involve civic participation and gifting and that kind of thing. So again, I always fall back to the beach cleanup idea, but just those kinds of activities that you can get people together in a way that expresses those, expresses our ethos and our principles. And then the key thing for those things is once you've had activities like that, document them, take pictures, do a blog post, whatever it is, and then get that back up on the page. Sort of creates that cycle of appreciation and attention and intention around what you're doing with your community.
Right.
And so other people will start to come into those sort of things.
And for many of you, you have people who are just simply too far away from Nevada and just can't ever see getting it all together and getting there. So how do you keep that, keep that spirit alive, but in your hometown, in your community?
In terms of timing after an event, about how many days is it I heard from Jenny Cage, she's like, we usually get something up within 36 hours, onto the Facebook group or page.
Images.
Yeah, just comments, the thank yous, and it was an amazing.
Yeah, I would do pretty quickly.
Really, you're day and a half, 2 days max.
Yeah. I would say so. I feel like if you do it right after, it gets a little needy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It feels a little okay, I was just there.
Right.
But yeah, give it a couple of days and not before it gets stale.
Okay.
Yeah, people are anxious to see photos of themselves and their friends and all of that. And you can also, if you have access while you're at the event, you can be putting up photos of, we're working on our blog and our Twitter account during this whole event. So.
And to answer the question about frequency, post frequency, what's right, total judgment call. And it really does depend on your audience. Are these people, generally speaking, who are really, really active in social media and they're really active on the internet, then they probably got a lot of information coming all at once. If you post too frequently, they're going to be like, okay, God, shut up. And then they're
and they'll tell you, too.
And they'll tell you.
they'll let you know.
And if you
They'll definitely
if you
let know.
post too infrequently, then it looks like they're going to kind of stop paying attention. It's going to feel like the momentum is slowed down. You know what I mean? They're going to feel like it's, they're going to sort of disengage in that way. I usually for the Burning Man one, because it's such a huge audience and every time I post to the page, to the Burning Man page, it shows up on a person's news feed, right? I want to make sure that I'm not sitting there like hammering it, because it's going to turn people away. So I usually do a max of like 3 posts a week, like max, unless something really crazy is going on. And sometimes I dial it back to 1 a week. So my boss would love it if I had an editorial calendar that says, here's what I'm posting, one, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I can't do that.
It's instinctual.
It's totally instinctual.
And I was doing the same thing with the timeline. I was putting in photos from 87 and 92, and they were really, really cool. And I was really careful what I clicked hide from the news feed. So that, if you look through, there's some Easter eggs in there. There's some cool stuff that didn't hit the news feed that only 1 or 2 people could like. And every once in a while, I would put something out to the greater community, and it would get 2,000 likes. So it's you have to be careful not to overwhelm people. You don't want their entire news feed to be all your region.
So hiding from the news feed does not mean it's hiding it from the public.
Correct.
It just doesn't go out announced.
Exactly.
Correct. Which is good. Yeah, because when she put the timeline up, there was a whole bunch at once. I was like, oh shit, I hope she hit them, because it's gonna be like too tsunami.
Well, because there's so many followers on that
Yeah.
page, it's really obvious which ones hit the news feed and which ones didn't,
Yeah.
just by the number of likes.
Yeah. And this is what I do too, by the way. I follow very carefully, I watch very carefully the dynamics of a particular post that I do. So in other words, if I post something that's about, like a really great video about Black Rock City, you can see how many comments there are, you can see how many shares there were, and you can gauge the popularity of that thing. And then I post something about something else that's not as interesting to people, and it's just like crickets. Like no shares, 7 comments, and I'm just like, okay, that died on the vine.
Right.
And so I start to get the sense from there, like I now further understand my audience, right? I sort of make a mental
They
note
don't
of
care about this, but
they don't care
love
about this. So don't keep hammering them with the thing that, or things of the ilk that they didn't like.
Right. And then you get the sense if you post something wrong, it pisses them off. They're in the middle of a big ticket war, and you're posting something about, love and happiness, and it pisses them off. You know next time not to do that, right? So, learn from your mistakes, and again, trust your intuition.
Yeah. And really work with your audience. Reply to them, listen to them, hear them. Yeah.
Terry from Boston. Our landscape is huge with multiple lists, and or even burner announced list isn't really that active as compared to our own list. How do you organize what you're tweeting, or what you're posting, and like your team itself? It's like, so you have to make it organic, and you have to be RC isn't really that involved in it.
Yeah.
But do you get them all onto the same roof sometimes? Because then there's a lot of misinformation too.
Yeah.
And then people complain because they don't see something, but then they have so much stuff in their email box from notifications and everything, they don't even bother to look at it anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, I would, in that sense, I would create more of an editorial calendar. This person's going to tweet on this day, this person's going to blog on this day. This is the type of content we're going to talk about this week, and the type of content we're going to talk about next week. Or even, on Mondays we talk about this, and on Fridays we talk about that.
But how do you bring like a list that's been going on for like 8 years underneath this new social media, in a sense, and you say, let's all do this together?
Right.
I mean, do you just call a social media meeting and people who, have this and this and this, and we're all friends too, that's the thing, we all go, and there is that inquiry.
Yeah, you can put it out there, say, hey, we're putting together a team to help us manage your social media. Please join us for a meeting at this cafe at this time. And who shows up are the people that are really interested in helping out. A discussion list, you can't really do.
It's like, you can do that easily. I guess it's more finding people who are actually doing it now, who've been doing it for years, who are controlling certain things too.
Right.
Like the servers, where, it's like the whole, and then when people drop out, parts of it drop out, and you don't even realize it dropped until you have a crisis and you're in a server.
Right.
It's the structuring. It's not just the asking for help. It's like the structuring. How do you organize that in the region?
Right.
If you want it to be organic. I guess I'm on that last question on your list. It's like it is organic, but yet it has the opportunity to actually fail miserably, and when it does, it does.
Right.
And then, and
Before it fails, gather the information. You really useful. We've run into that a couple of times where we had stuff drop off and we realized, okay, wow, this person's totally not answering emails, and we've lost this mailing list, and we've lost all those
Right.
names on the mailing list.
Yeah.
Right.
But people want to help. It's just when they disappear, they're gone. So I would ask
Right.
all those people now.
And sometimes the people that want to help, like we have problems with like people not understanding the non-commercial aspect. You know, so when we have events, they want to be able to put the logo or say thank you to someone. You know, not just someone, but a company. You know,
Yeah.
and they just don't get it. And it's
Guidelines, written guidelines.
It's really big guidelines. But then people who have started groups that are based, they think that it's a burner thing, but it really isn't. And so you get into this like ideology discussion when you just want to talk social media. You know,
Right.
it's like, you know, do you say, well, this is really how it has to be, and you come off as being, you know, like yesterday, you know, the woman was saying pushy or something. You know, it's like, you know, it's or drinking the Kool-Aid. You know,
Right.
well, it doesn't always have to be all burner. And I'm like, well, no, but there's a thing that makes burners together that you have to understand of the principal
I had
message.
concerns when I was sending everybody the best practices. Like, we want you to be twitter.com/location burners and facebook.com/location burners. And I was a little worried about, you know, feedback from all of you saying, don't tell us what to do, you know,
Right.
we're our own region. And which I totally understand. We want you guys to sort of, you know, figure it out on your own as well. But once I put it out there and said, we want you to be found. This is about you, this is helping you and your region, and just showing sort of the intention of why we were doing what we were doing really helped. So if you put out those guidelines, rather than just saying, you must follow these rules, because burners don't follow rules, rules are meant to be broken, right? But if you put out the reason why you're doing it to the greater community, it will help, I think.
So to answer your question about like sort of the sort of editorial management, right, across a bunch of different channels and a bunch of different groups, we are experiencing that. The one thing that we have going for us is that I manage all of the, you know, all the public-facing communications. So it's like I know what I'm doing. I hope, like I know what I put on the Jackrabbit versus and when and the timing and that kind of stuff. We are now entering a phase where we have a lot of different Twitter feeds that are run by different people within the organization. There's like the burner, you know, the GLC one, there's Global Burners, there's a Burning Man Technology one, there's a Burning Man Tickets, there's a BMIR one, there's a whole bunch. And suddenly we were like, okay, wait. I want to make sure that these are still staying in line with the, not like towing the line of our, you know, like that, but just making sure that we're not talking at cross purposes. I want to make sure that somebody else doesn't tweet something frivolous when I'm about to tweet something really serious that's going to really, you know, impact the community in a certain way. So I'm about to create a sort of a social media administrators email list. Another list, because we love lists. To communicate with those folks and to be able to have them communicate back with me and just sort of, so we're all on the same page. Like I want to be able to let them know, here's something that's coming down the pipe. And you might want to be aware of this, that this kind of communication is coming so you can lay the foundation for your community in some way, right? Sort of prep them for that in the right way, and not get yourself in trouble. So it's a matter of figuring out, I would say within your group of people who are doing that kind of stuff, the best way to communicate with each other, whether it's in person or whether it's, you know, just like, hey, let's make sure we're just all on the same page, generally speaking, and not talking at cross purposes. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And then then it's also like creating something that you're not allowed to see now in the activity containers and meeting the time and stuff like that. So it's covering a whole bunch of different projects,
right.
But it's a different name altogether.
Right.
So should we actually build that up also or not? Or keep it to like Boston Burners, Firefly, Boston Decom? You know what I mean? It's like also we have all these different groups and you bring it under something.
Right. I would say whatever makes sense in terms of like the size of the audience, the distribution of the messaging, right? You don't want so many channels that people don't know where to look anymore. It becomes too much noise. So just whatever, it's really just a judgment call. But the other thing I want to mention is editorial guidelines, and is what I'm developing or have developed for Burning Man is the Burning Man social media policy and our Twitter guidelines, for instance, and our Facebook guidelines. And I have, so for Twitter, for example, I have our general guidelines that cover sort of Twitter feeds generally, and then I'm about to create one specifically for each different feed, because each one is has a different behavior and is a different type. So there are ones that are, like the Burning Man one is very much just a broadcast, right? I don't do a lot of chit chat with people and responding and stuff like that. It's more just like a broadcast. And then the Burning Man tickets one, for instance, is very much, it's customer service. So it's very much dialogue oriented. Completely different way of behaving, completely different way of communicating with people. Like they can be more personable and more sort of, a little more funny and that kind of thing. But they have to be careful because it's customer service. So they don't want to be too funny because then it pisses people off. So I have to go through each one very carefully and think, who's the audience for this one? So again, doing this exercise for each one of those things, right? It's like, who's your audience? What's your intention with them? So therefore, what tools are you going to use, and how are you going to, communicate with people properly? So figuring out those guidelines for yourself, I would say, is key. Dan?
And are those posted anywhere?
They will be, yes. I will post. We'll make all the social media policy stuff available to you, absolutely. Xander?
Sandra from Portland. One of the biggest challenges that we've run into in Portland is with Facebook specifically. There's a lot of people who are on Facebook, obviously all day long, all night long. And the RCs, we actually don't have jobs or lives that allow us to be instant messenger style with Facebook. I'm curious if you've found tools to help notify you if a snowball effect is happening where people are getting angry because they're not feeling that a response is happening within 30 seconds or a minute, and they, or an hour, which seems to be what our community really desires.
I would delegate somebody on your page who is an active participant who gets it.
Look for that angel poster like you were talking about.
Bobzilla was that for me. Because Bobzilla was on our Facebook. Bobzilla was on our Facebook page when I first started it up, and he was like constantly answering people's questions, and he was getting it right, and his tone was right. And I was like, dude, could you like keep an eye on this and see, let me know if you see something that I should be aware of that I'm not. Okay. And so that worked great.
And how did he notify you when there was something? What tool did he use? He just emailed you directly?
Yeah, he would just email me directly and be like, you might want to, he'd flag, he'd like cut and paste a particular comment. Like the flood was so fast, I couldn't keep up.
Right, yeah. There's an iPhone app called Pages. And you just put in the pages that you maintain in that. And actually, all you have to do is log in, and it automatically picks up the pages that you maintain. And then it sends you notifications. So, we can pull up the Burning Man page and see, we have 59 new comments and 200 new likes. Something's going on. Right. And you click at it, and you can just look at it and see what's happening in the community.
Yes.
What we ended up doing was having a kind of official and unofficial areas, and we basically posted on our website that Kapalina was the official, and that Kapalina and then Oahu announced and Hawaii announced and Maui announced and Big Island announced were the official stuff, okay? The rest of it was more discussion. People could post whatever they wanted, but with the caveat that, if we saw something that was, offensive or whatever, that we would say, no. But so far we haven't had to do any moderation at all, but people know that the website is the official thing. So for example, if we're having a meeting for planning our event, we have a web page, a Facebook page for Kaleidoscope as well. We actually put, when our meetings, our planning meetings are going to be. And that was actually the first time we used that for that, reminding people about coming to the planning meetings. And last time we had a planning meeting, we had double the amount of volunteers show up. I was completely floored, but just using our Facebook page was pretty amazing. But, making it clear what's the official thing and what is not an official thing, maybe a discussion group or something, has really, really helped us keep it, if we have information on tickets, we just say, go to the website, we don't discuss a lot of things. Right. There's new stuff about tickets, go to the website, or there's new stuff about, whatever, go to the website. Yeah. And then people know that it's the official versus the unofficial. That really helps a lot. Yeah.
How do we factor in the new regional page that we have on BurningMan.com as far as what events we put up there? Do we just put official Burning Man, LA Burning Man events? Or do we
I think that's going to depend on your community itself. You can either use Facebook as a way to point to that page, or maybe that page to point to Facebook, depending on where people are really spending their time. I would just evaluate it, just start using it and see
So there's
what
no
people gravitate to.
rule on it needs to be Burning Man official events that we post.
That, I don't know. I don't know if you know.
No. You mean on the
We
new?
have like the Do Lab, which is this
Right.
huge group that does events all the time, and
Right.
they're very heavy on our newsletter.
I actually believe, I would want to confirm with Megs, but I believe that we can only do official events on our website.
On the website. I think
Because
that's right.
the reason being it's a liability thing.
Okay.
Because if it's liability and also intellectual property. If somebody puts an event up there that isn't official, it will reflect on Burning Man, whether it's the cops reflecting on it on Burning Man or the public doing that. So if something happens at that event, it can come back to us because we officially promote it.
Right.
So we want to keep that separate.
Yeah.
You mentioned editorial guidelines. Is there an existing style guide so that there's guidelines on consistent usage of terminology,
Yes.
dates, and times and stuff?
Sort of, not to that level, but yeah, I have, I've written up editorial guidelines for Twitter. Not as much on Facebook, but definitely Twitter, like real style guide, like always use we versus I, things like that. So yeah, I do have those, and I'll make those available as well. Yeah, Rad. I'm calling you Rad now, sorry.
Calgary Regional. What is the Facebook page for the Global Leadership Conference, and how do we share photos from this?
So we don't have a Facebook page for the conference. We have a Twitter account, which I had put up, let's see if we go back.
GLC?
Yeah.
Burning Man GLC.
Burning Man GLC with the hashtag BMGLC13. That's pretty much what we're using. And then if you go to burningman-glc.com and you click on community and schedule, that will take you to our online community. Everything that is hashtagged BMGLC13 is showing up on there. And there's a whole discussion area for that too. So we've got the website, we've got the online community, and we've got Twitter.
Yeah. And I'm posting stuff from the GLC feed. I'm posting to the Burning Man Twitter account and to the Facebook page, but pretty sparingly, because not all 430,000 people need to know everything that we're doing here. But I want to get like the gist that we're here and that this is happening.
And we've had to be careful about things similar to what you're going to experience. We didn't want to put out to the 400,000 people that we were showing Sparks to an RSVP only group on Thursday night. So you just need to be a little bit careful when you're thinking about what are we going to promote, what are we going to keep quiet.
Yeah. And by the way, if you ever have any questions about things that might be sensitive or whatever, feel free to email me and say I'm thinking about doing this. Is bounce stuff off of me. I'm happy to give you guys some advice and thoughts. Yes.
I have a question from the beginning, about the Facebook page, because I created Brazil, was Facebook Brazil, Facebook Burning Man Brazil instead of Brazilian burners or Brazil burners, and I even think that I put it in Portuguese, which is Brazil with S.
Right.
I don't have a large community. If need to have a change would be now.
I would
How
change it, yeah.
important is that, or how I build, because it's the same meaning. Burning Man Brazil.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or
I would love to see it Brazil burners, just so that it's really consistent and people are like, okay, I'm in Reno, I know it's Reno burners, I'm going to look for Brazil, I know it's going to be Brazil burners. Just so that it's really consistent and easy for people to find.
Because there's no way of changing.
There is a way of changing.
Oh, there
You
is?
go into your admin panel and you can only change it once. Facebook will not allow you to change it twice. You can change your name once and then that option goes away. And that, they may change. The thing about Facebook, as you learn Facebook, is that once you're really comfortable with it, they're going to change something. They have to keep their, their huge staff of engineers busy, right? So things change all the time. With that button where it was, I used to teach social media workshops, and I'd be in a workshop and I'd be teaching these business owners, okay, so here's where you, that's not it anymore. Let's figure out where it went. So things change all the time. But for right now, you can change it once.
This is a risk, by the way. It's happened to me many, many times now with Facebook, where it's I have functionality that I'm kind of depending on, and suddenly it goes away.
Yeah.
Or shifts and changes. Like when what was it? There was something they did with pages that completely ruined like how I, actually interact with. Oh, that's what it was. And the pages, when all the discussion stuff, like all the public discussion happens in this other area that's kind of harder to find now. It's kind of like buried.
Yeah.
And it's focusing more on the official posts. And I want it to be the exact opposite. I want the community stuff to be primary, not what we're saying. I was livid.
Well, there now is a button right in the middle underneath the photos button where you can say highlights, recent posts by page, and recent posts by others. So it will come up, but it automatically comes up only as the post by the page. So yeah, there's less community interaction, which for some Facebook pages is great.
Right,
for Burning Man, not so much. Right.
So, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it's like, that's the tool. So it's like, okay, well, they've changed this now. How do I work within that paradigm?
Right.
It's
and that will probably change soon too.
Yeah, exactly. It's wait 5 minutes, it'll be back to
Like Brazil with Z?
That's totally up to you.
Because like, I think it's harder for Brazilians to find because.
I would do that.
Then do the ads.
It's your country.
It's your
Because I don't think that they would look for Brazil burners. Maybe they will look for Burning Man Brazil.
Maybe get that
Does
page
that
and
sound
have a
like-
reference.
That's true.
Because like Brazil burners is like someone that have already been there, and had this feeling of I'm a burner.
You create both and have one point to the other.
Oh, that's a good idea.
No, you don't have to manage them. You just basically put the page and say, we are not on this page, but we're here.
Right. Right. I've done
You
that
can
before.
control
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is in the know. When you say Brazil burners, it is already like in the in-group.
Yes. And burners means different things to different people. To some people, it means people are potheads.
I think Californians are potheads.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
We're all potheads. Yes.
Actually, as it turned out, we had already created Oahu burners, and actually my husband did it, and before I knew that that's what you guys wanted, so that worked out great. But when you're marketing and you're trying to brand your event, because we're only in our second year, is it better to, I had to write this down, to call it like Kaleidoscope Burning Man Regional Event, or is it better to say Oahu's Regional Burn, or is there a particular way that you want us to kind of market this, or is it just whatever we choose and just be consistent?
Whatever works for you. And remember, if you're going to print it on a postcard or something, you don't want it to be really, really long. Short. Especially if you're using Twitter. If you have a really long Twitter name, you're using up a lot of your 140 characters when people retweet.
Right. Well, we've been using Oahu's Regional Burn, but I just wanted to see if there was something better. But I also wanted to find out, is there a way for us to get the email addresses of people from our state?
It's like, you mean some ticket sales?
Yeah, so that we could add them to our list or anything, or is that just strictly? Because I try to put out there, to sign up, for Jackrabbit Speaks and sign up for, Oahu Dance and all that
Anybody
stuff.
who buys tickets to Burning Man is automatically added to the Jackrabbit Speaks.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so I know when that happens because it happens with the batch process. And what I can do when that happens, when we do an ad, is I'll put a post at the top of the Jackrabbit that says, hey, engage with your regional. Here's the regionals page. Go find them, and you can get connected to people. Because and anybody who emails us asking for something specific to a particular region, I just point them back at the regional.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of burners because everything happens in Honolulu. That's where the population is, and that's why everything happens in Honolulu. So, but I know there's people out there.
Yeah.
We try collecting email addresses at every party and event we have.
Smart. Mm-hmm. That's very smart. Yeah.
In-person social service.
Yeah.
So weird.
In person.
You actually talk.
But be good to them, because you don't want to abuse those if you don't have a electronic or a privacy policy. We've had plenty of people try and get at our list of emails for people who are ticketed, and it's that's like precious.
Yeah. Yes.
Not as much distribution, but more organization. I don't know how. It's on a personal page, but I know it can be basically friends organization. Like, I have tried my best to be as open as possible with everything, just mainly for lack of needing to organize, so I can just leave it all open, leave all as public a profile as possible. But I know I'm getting, 3 months ago, there was some change that happened that the amount of activity that happens on my personal page has gone down tremendously. And I assume it has to do with everybody needing to become more and more private with their information.
No, it's probably Facebook changing this is one of the things that's really, really stupid that they do. They twiddle the knobs and switches behind the scenes in terms of determining how your feed is filtered, right? So depending on your level of connection with a certain person or what they post, in other words, if they post a video, then it's more likely to show up than if they just post something else. The number of people who comment on one of your friends' posts, well, you're more likely to see that now. And so you no longer really have any control over, what you can see, where you do actually have that control, but it's like way down. You have to go find the knobs and switches yourself to
They've also changed it so the pages only show up on, I think, a third of their users' newsfeed. So even if you put it on newsfeed, it doesn't hit everybody.
Unless you pay.
Unless you pay. So which brings up the point, we are Facebook users, not customers. Customers are the advertisers, and they're the ones that Facebook caters to. So just remember that we're just the users. We're their source of revenue. They want us to click on advertising. That's what they want us to do.
So it becomes challenging because you can't necessarily trust that something you're putting out is getting to your audience.
Right. Not everybody. It's not going to show up on everybody's news feeds.
And that's where pages come in handy because you can guarantee that. I don't think they've changed that to my knowledge, that anything I post as Burning Man on the Facebook page is going to automatically show up in the person's feed. I want to somebody's liked.
It shows up on a third of the news feeds of the followers.
What's the third?
Unless you advertise for it.
Can you explain the third again?
Yeah, so if you have 99 people have clicked like on your Facebook page, unless you pay for an ad, it's going to show up on 33 news feeds, give or take. The algorithm probably changes, and it's going to rotate whose pages, which is why you want people to click like and to comment, because then you'll get more exposure on those posts. And asking questions. What's your experience with the rainbow? That gets more visibility to more news feeds and more people.
Yes.
I keep reminding people in our different venues that Facebook changes all the time. If you really want to know what's going on, click on the page or click on the group.
Right. Yeah, and then use your announce list. Say, hey, we just put this post up. Use the post to get back to the blog. Use, all these things can just sort of move each other, the people around to the different places so they get the information.
So I just started as the RC in Monterey, and Jenny Kay had set up it was the WordPress site that I was referring to before. So it was really a MontereyBurners.com page. And I know she posts on it, and I haven't been using that, but you're saying that really that would be like the best place to have all the major information happening, is that right? And then everything points to that? Because there's people who definitely won't get on Facebook in our community. So then that Monterey announce list is their main form of communication. And it's really just constantly trying to drive people then to Monterey Burners is what I want to do. And mainly make that, or I'm putting I put it everywhere, or I just put it on the Monterey Burners and I'm saying go here to look at it, or do I repeat the information on the page and on the group?
So many years ago I was in sales, and my sales manager used to say to me, the phone is a tool to get an in-person meeting, right? So in that instance, I used the phone, I got the meeting. Think about what's right for your audience. Which tools do you want to use to get them where? Like where is home base? Is it your website? Is it your Facebook page? Often on the Burning Man page, we just want them to go back to burningman.com, read the blog. Hey, I'm a DJ, I want to perform. Great, here's our performer's guideline. Go back to our website. So think about, is MontereyBurners.com your home base? Is that where you want to send people to, or is that do you want to use that to get people on your email announce list? So like where exactly are you? What are you using to direct them where?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. The email announce list. It's just an email. So you're not really. I'm not able to send. Well, I don't know. I've never tried attaching photos or, things. Does it work for that?
Depends on the service you're on.
Yeah, some do, some don't, and some people get annoyed with that. They're like, I don't want people to-
The Monterey announce at burningman.com, that's just straight,
That's probably mailman, I imagine. So
I guess,
you
yeah.
wouldn't be able to send.
Probably not using
So-
attachments,
so
but you
that
can
gets-
say, we have this great photo on our website
Oh, okay.
right here.
Yep. That's what we do. Look at the Jackrabbit as
yeah,
a model. Look
it's
at.
all just links to the.
Yep, it's all, it's pointing people to that information. Because if I don't post, if someone posts something on our blog, no one's going to see it unless I point people to it.
Right.
They don't act, the likely, again, this is an attention economy, right? There's a lot of things that are distracting people. To expect people to go proactively out and find something is a pipe dream. So you have to really get their attention and aim them where you want them to go.
Right.
So that's why it's helpful to have one bucket of your static information that you can just point people to.
When
Because
people
then-
are private messaging the Facebook page saying, what are the dates for Burning Man this year? Look, they're on our website, go here. I would never say, the dates are blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Because that just spoon
It puts
feeds
it on
them
you.
the information. Right, and then they're just gonna come out with another question. But if you send them to the place, if you send them to the home base where all that source information is, then they are self-reliant.
Do you have, just off the top of your head, a great regional page that's its own website, that's not on Facebook, that's not, one that you think is a
regional
great...
website?
Yeah, a regional...
I think
website.
Austin Flipside, I don't think they're using social media much, but I know Austin Flipside is using their website pretty well.
Africa Burns is
So-
a great
Africa Burns is a
website.
great website.
I can speak to that a little, real quick, as a social media lead, and actually a post here has been the comm lead, or comm area facilitator. We were focused on the website primarily, but we have a huge unofficial group, 2,500 people, that plays out huge drama. I mean, good God. So the decision was late last year, we really need to make an official Facebook page so that we can post the official information. People can go to a drama-free, information thing. And the challenge I had selling it internally, because we've been around a long time, we've used email lists, et cetera, are that our email list has been around since 1997. Traffic has dropped by 99%. I mean, it's unbelievable how quiet that list is now. Everything is on Facebook.
Right.
And but the trouble is, if you don't control it, then you have to have some sort of official message. So I'm glad to see that whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's why we have it. We weren't early on because we're kind of like, the website. But then,
It's 11:26. We had 11 minutes ago.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
We're done.
All right.
I'm around. I'll be around.
Thank you.